right common carotid and right subclavian. The next one is the left common carotid. The next one will be the left subclavian. Fine. So we have then this same vessel right here. This is the aorta, ascending aorta. 64 then is the first branch. So 64 should be what? I don't know if it's labeled on that. Brachiocephalic trunk. That's fine. That's awesome. I don't know if you look in the Lucy and the Arc, it may not be 64. The one over at Clarion that I stole from here, there were two 65s. So you had to know. But I have a bad feeling 61 is not labeled as what we know is the next branch coming off.
It says left pulmonary artery.
Yeah, so is this a left pulmonary artery? No, it's not even close. What is this?
The left common carotid.
This is the left common carotid, exactly right. So the second one coming out is the left common carotid regardless of what the number is. Okay? We okay here? Now, if you put it in here, you can see that 64 goes to this vessel. It's cut off. So this vessel is still the brachiocephalic trunk. Okay? It doesn't show on the right-hand side any branching. If you look at this cut in back, this cut in back is continuous with this cut right here. Okay? That then continues up. Okay, so if you look at now, it's probably going to be external skull. So this is probably back around page 50. My guess is back around page 50. If you look at 107, that should also say the left common carotid. Okay, 107 is this. It's a continuation of that second cut. So it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up. A left common carotid then branches into what two vessels? An internal and external carotid, exactly right. Now, we'll have two of those, so you always have to. Okay, and this, I've already had lab over at the other campus. I told them no less than 15 times at the beginning of the quiz and throughout the quiz and after the quiz and every time I saw them walking down the hall. If there's more than one in the body, you have to be specific left and right. Okay? Inevitably, people didn't put left and right. Okay? Even if it's a flow chart and it only shows the left, there is just a brachiocephalic trunk. There is just a basilar artery. There are two, however, vertebral arteries, a left and right, that will form the basilar. So you've got to know, that's why I like those flow charts. You will see flow chart pictures tomorrow in your quiz. Okay, make sure you look at those pictures that were in it was Lab 5. Lab 5 overview, artery pictures. Okay, Lab 6, overview. There will be vein pictures. You will see pictures, okay, of the vascularization on the lab practical next week. Please do not forget to look at those. Okay? Now, having said that, I'm going to pull out pictures you probably haven't seen before. Okay? It's just like this. Okay? If you know what the first branch is, okay, I don't care. I could pull a heart out that you've never seen before. But if you see the arch of the aorta and you see the first thing coming off it, what do you have to put? Brachiocephalic trunk. I don't care if you've never seen it before. If you know the vascularization, if you're good with it, you should be able to extrapolate to anything that I showed you. Okay? Fine. Now, if you look at the flow chart, okay, we have both an internal and external on both the right and left side. These would be the left sides. Okay, is it the internal or the external that gives rise to those other three I asked you to know? External. Okay, so the maxillary, the facial, and the superficial temporal. Those are on the outside. You can see them out here. Well, over here as well. Okay? If you can see them on the outside, they're branches of the external carotid. So you have to look up here, and when you look up here, you can see then that it's 108 that's going to give rise to those that are on the outside. So 108 has to be the external, more specifically the left external carotid artery. You can see a 112 coming out here. That is the left facial artery. Okay, behind the mandible, going to the upper jaw, the maxilla, you'll have the 118, that's the left maxillary. Okay, another branch of the external is this one, looks like a 116 on the outside of the temporal bone. Outside superficial, temporal bone, superficial temporal. But which one is this one?
Right.
It's the right one. Okay, they don't have one on the left side, they have it on the right side. So we have a left common, a left external, a left internal, a left facial, left maxillary, a right superficial temporal. Okay. Now, if 108, try not to have this, try not to kick you. Oh, that was a joke. If you have the external 108, 112, 118, did you just kick her? Holy.
You're rubbing off on me.
119 then has to be the other one. 119 has to be the internal carotid, the left internal. Okay, the vertebrals that are coming up, they're coming off the subclavian, they sort of go up through those, and you can see it buried. Well, no, it's sucky on that one. Where would you see a good vertebral? You have the vertebrals that are coming up, forming the basilar, forming the circle of Willis. That's pretty awesome. Okay, so if this is 132, this is 130. Well, one there in the neck. But if you just were holding it up, would you be able to differentiate a cervical from thoracic and lumbar? How? The one that has a hole. Now, they all have a vertebral foramen. Is that the hole you're talking about?
No.
Which hole are you talking about?
The other one.
Well, okay. What was the other one, though? Hmm?
The holes on the sides.
The holes on the side. What do we call those processes that were sticking out to the sides? Transverse processes. In the transverse processes of all the cervical was a hole, a transverse foramen. Okay? The vertebrals pass through those transverse foramina. Okay, so when you see, I mean, this is a beautiful picture of the vertebral. Now, how many vertebrals will we have? 2. Just like we saw in the back of the Don Jake Saunders model of the heart. There were 2 vertebrals back there, a left and a right. So which vertebral are we looking at here? A right vertebral. So if I put this picture on tomorrow and I say, what's that vessel? If you write vertebral, guess what? It's partially wrong because you have to tell me right. Okay?
Yes.
What's wrong? Yes, this is very good. Look at the internal carotid. The internal carotid has this swelling. That's the carotid sinus. This is the only picture where I've seen the carotid sinus. It's on your sheet. This is the only picture where I've seen it. There are baroreceptors and chemoreceptors associated with this swelling right here, the carotid sinus. When we get to that part, the vascular part in lecture, I'm like, oh, the carotid sinus. And now you can think warm, fuzzy memories of our little family meeting here, our little gathering of that swelling. That was it. Okay, so you don't see the vertebrals. You see the vertebrals here, forming the basal, forming the circle. This one out here is going to be the what? So you have a common, the left common. It branches. We know the 2 branches of a common are the internal and external. You've got this one and that one. Which one's which? We have to recognize, we have to trace it up and see that this one is eventually also going to give rise to the circle of Willis. So this one had to be the internal. The other one by default had to be the external. Okay. So we've got 132, 133. What is this vessel right here? Dave, I refuse to answer that because I've never seen that picture before. Doesn't matter. Okay, what is this big vessel that's arching around right here? The aortic arch. And what's the first branch coming off the aortic arch? Brachiocephalic trunk. It's not labeled. You can't ask it, Dave. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay, that's the brachiocephalic trunk right there. Okay, what's it give rise to? What's this big one right here? Right common carotid. What's this one coming out over there? Right subclavian. Okay, there are 500 pictures in here that I could ask the brachiocephalic trunk on. Incidentally, this is the descending aorta. Notice we have these little branches. Okay, what kind of blood? Oxygenated or deoxygenated? Pass through the aorta. Oxygenated. We're actually feeding now our respiratory tree. So we have this tube. What's this tube called right here that you can palpate?
Trachea.
Trachea. The esophagus is behind it. What's the trachea branch into? Bronchi. So these branches feeding the tree are referred to as the bronchiole. Okay, it's oxygenated blood coming from the aorta, delivering nutrients and oxygen to the respiratory system itself. Because the tubes are big, we can't rely on diffusion through the trachea. We have to actually feed it itself. Kind of like the coronary circulation. We can't rely on oxygen just diffusing through the wall of the heart. we need to supply the heart with its own blood supply. Those are the coronary vessels. Kind of the same concept here. These are the bronchioles. It's awesome.
So you said by the esophagus?
Now in the thorax, however, so that should be on page probably 53 or 54, back to thorax. So we had the heart, we had 64 being the brachiocephalic trunk. We had 61 being the second branch. The second branch is the left common carotid. What is the third branch? Left subclavian. So if I put this back in here, you can see that actually, oh gosh, this right here is the third branch. So what does this have to be? Left subclavian. Okay, so 66 should say left subclavian. And it then goes up, and then you should see a 121 back in the head section. What's 121 back in the head section, which is probably back by page 50-ish. Yeah, it's another part of the subclavian. So you have the origin of the subclavian in here, and then it comes up and you have it sort of arching out, 121, another part of the subclavian. Out here, however, if you look at 54, it should say axillary because you're in the armpit. You go out a little bit further, 56 is now in the brachial region. That's going to be the brachial artery, more specifically left. You have to put left because why?
It's the left.
There's a right arm as well. Okay. Now that is going to bifurcate to the 62 and 59. Right radial and right ulnar. Okay, the radial will be lateral, ulnar will be medial. We okay there?
Yeah, what numbers were those? I'm sorry.
Probably 62. I didn't pull the muscle off to see another number. They actually had 58 up higher for the radial. Fine. Okay? Okay. Good. Trying to sneak it in there. Good with the arm. We're coming down. What are these blue vessels right here? Pulmonary arteries. What are the red ones? Pulmonary veins. Please remember, blue pulmonary arteries, red pulmonary veins. Unfortunately, they labeled 60 and 61 blue here, they then label 60 and 61 the red ones here. Okay? I don't care about the numbers. The blue ones are the pulmonary arteries, the red ones are the pulmonary veins, regardless of what numbers they're using. Okay? So I could hold this out and touch 60. Okay? I could hold this out and touch 60. You'd have to give me different answers. Okay, if I'm holding this one, you'd have to say pulmonary arteries. If I just have this out there, you'd have to tell me
Pulmonary veins.
Pulmonary veins. Blue are arteries, red are veins for the pulmonary circuit. Okay, you've got this vessel now coming down in the thorax. You had the ascending aorta, arch of the aorta, and descending aorta. The descending aorta, however, passes through the thorax. So 67, if you look at thoracic region, 67 should say thoracic aorta. And now goes inferior to the diaphragm. Okay, we now would have the abdominal aorta. So if you look at 122 down in the abdomen, 122 should say abdominal aorta. So when it's in the thoracic region, okay, thoracic aorta, when it goes inferior to the diaphragm, it's now the abdominal aorta. So far, so good. Now they've misnumbered it. This is the first big branch. I don't see any phrenics. Roger, I don't see any phrenics on that. Roger had inferior phrenics. What does phrenic mean? The diaphragm. When we get to the respiratory system, okay. What was a posterior ramus? We now have what's numbered as 223, but it's mislabeled. We know, however, the first branch inferior to the diaphragm, the big E is the celiac trunk. So what's labeled as 223 right here is the celiac trunk. The only tiny little problem, it's not necessarily a problem, they label 123 as the celiac trunk. Okay?
Wait,
They label
123?
123 as the celiac trunk.
Where's this at? There's mine.
Should be here. That's its diameter. What would you call that vessel right here, from here to here? The big red one. That is the celiac trunk. And then it branches right away. So this 223 is all we have of the celiac trunk. On the branch that goes out to the spleen. So in my opinion, 123 is the same thing as 187, which is the splenic artery. Now, tiny little problem. They probably say 187 is the splenic vein.
Wait.
88. So they have red being 187 on this, and like a centimeter away, they now put the 187 number, which was the artery here, on the blue vein in here. So just another screw up for some reason. I don't know.
You should just design your own.
The small intestine. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
What is it?
What is what?
The first
Small
branch of
intestine?
the small intestine.
Oh, I don't know.
The duodenum.
Duodenum.
Yeah,
It's going to be coming like that.
okay. Yeah, I didn't realize they were called branches.
Well, section then?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay? I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Duodenum. Okay, so pancreas, okay, duodenum, okay, goes to then the jejunum that's going to be coming down. Okay, it's like this. Okay, so you now have 3 branches of the celiac trunk. What are they? Common hepatic, your left gastric, and your splenic.
Where's the gastric one?
Left gastric,
Do you know where it's
145 should be left gastric. On stomach, okay. And then you have a 181 common hepatic.
It says proper, but you have to make sure it's common.
You have to make sure it's common.
Yeah.
Okay? 3 branches of what? Common hepatic. Or the liver. Okay? Splenic. Left gastric. Common hepatic are the 3 branches coming from what? Celiac trunk, which is that. Very short branches. Almost right away, give you rise to those 3 things. Okay? Splenic, left gastric, common hepatic.
Is celiac trunk this thing here? Or
These little guys go into your diaphragm, these are your phrenics. Notice you've got that right there before it branches, they're calling that the celiac trunk. Okay, you do not see the liver, you do not see the spleen, you do not see the stomach, but we can assume that this little guy is your left gastric. Okay, that little guy is going to be your left gastric. Notice they've got one that then goes over to the left side of the body. We can assume that that's the splenic. This one would therefore be the common hepatic. We then have the next big branch coming off. That is your superior mesenteric. So you were asking which one was the celiac. Okay, that top one's the celiac. That next big one is that guy. That's the superior mesenteric artery. Celiac trunk, there is only one. Superior mesenteric, there is only one. Inferior mesenteric, there is only one. But the others, phrenics, there'll be a left and a right. Okay? Renals, a left and right. Gonadal, left and right.
so what is that on here? The renal one's on here.
Yeah, these are the renal ones going to the
Oh.
kidneys.
Okay.
And you have these suprarenals. Okay, that's a suprarenal. Okay. This one has a renal, which is 212. More specific. Left gastric, splenic, and
Common.
common hepatic. The next big branch, that guy, that's the superior mesenteric. Okay? Notice you have 212, which is a renal, which goes to the kidneys. Okay? Now we have a gland above the renal, that's the suprarenal, otherwise known as the adrenal gland. So they don't show it on that side, they do show it on this side. We have whatever number that is, I can't see it from my angle.
214.
That's the right suprarenal. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there.
Now, there are... Okay, so these are your phrenics. Coming off your phrenics, however, you have suprarenals. We also have this guy right here, suprarenal. Okay, we also have this guy right here, suprarenal. So we have a boatload, actually,
Yeah.
of suprarenals. I'm not really getting bent out of shape. Let's just call that a suprarenal. Okay? There are more than one. As the inferior mesenteric. Okay, so you can see now we put a lot of the guts back in there. You can't see the celiac trunk anymore, but you can see the superior mesenteric. You can see the inferior mesenteric. Okay, that guy would actually be a testicular that's going to be going down. They just didn't label it. Okay, so that there is that there. This guy here, they're letting this go down farther and show it go into the, like all of these intestines. Or ovarian, that guy's the inferior mesenteric. The abdominal aorta branching, these would be the common iliacs. So this guy in here would be an internal, this guy would be an external. Once that guy is now outside of the girdle, this now becomes the femoral. It becomes either the anterior, posterior, tibial, or the peroneal. Now it'll be a left external.
Okay.
Now if you go to lower extremity, inferior extremity, probably. I think, yeah. 67 should be a left femoral.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they had the deep femoral in there, I think, the 71.
Yeah.
On the back of the knee,
Popliteal artery.
72.
Yeah.
80 then has to be probably anterior tibial.
Yeah.
78 looks to be a posterior tibial.
Mhm.
81 then fibular or peroneal.
Yep.
Okay. That's not why it's an artery.
It's going away from the heart.
Bingo. That's why it's an artery. Now, what color should the pulmonary trunk be?
Blue.
Blue. To me,
It's red.
that doesn't look blue.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's an error.
What page is this on?
They're labeling as V1. Pulmonary vein should be red. Something as fundamental as the pulmonary circuit, they got the colors wrong on. It's the three branches coming off the ascending or the arch of the aorta.
The right common carotid and the right, it's the brachiocephalic trunk.
Brachiocephalic trunk,
Yeah.
Common crowd.
left
Left
common carotid,
Left
left
subclavian.
subclavian. So it's a little bit misleading, but they put A4 right there, okay? They don't want the arch of the aorta, they actually want the first branch, which is the brachiocephalic trunk. That's why I put the little piece of tape up here, meaning they want the thing that goes underneath the brachiocephalic vein being in the first branch. That's the brachiocephalic trunk. Unfortunately, they have A5 right there. They're trying, I believe, if you look at the label, they're trying to indicate the second branch off the arch of the aorta for A5.
Wait.
The left common.
It's arch, nor is that X. They're trying to show the first three branches. So we have to know, we have to therefore understand the first one, which is A4, is the brachiocephalic trunk. The next one, then A5, would be the next one right here is the left common carotid. And the next one, which they're labeling as A6, is the left subclavian, just the third branch coming off. I'm seeing A7. A7. Okay, A7. Oh, they want that as a vertebral, and that's ugly. That's ugly. I don't know how else to say it. You've got that little thing that then goes away, and you can't even see the damn thing. Okay. Now, A10 is going to be another picture of the left common carotid, but it comes up and it splits to A13 and A12. Now, to me, this isn't too bad. A13, you can see, continues on and gives rise to the facial. So A13 has to be the external carotid, left external to be specific. So you have to trace it up to see what it eventually goes to. If you just stop right there and you don't see where it goes, pictures can be really, really misleading. So you'd have to be able to trace it up and see that we're giving rise to A15 is the left facial, and A17 is the left superficial temporal. 12 have to be the left internal carotid.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other ones up there. So we then come back down. We know that A4 again was the what?
Brachial
Brachial
cephalic.
trunk. And the brachiocephalic trunk gives rise to what?
Right
Right common carotid and right
Subclavian.
subclavian. They haven't labeled the right common carotid, but they have labeled A21 as the right subclavian. Good. Or axillary region, so we'll call it the axillary artery. A22 is axillary. That same vessel will go from the axillary region out to this region, which is which region?
Bicep.
Brachial.
Brachial.
Okay, so we then are going to call it, when it goes out farther, A26 will be brachial. And it doesn't look like any arteries are labeled over here, so we have to refer to all of these as the right subclavian, right axillary, right brachial. And the brachial then, we have one humerus, but how many antebrachial bones do we have? Two, and which two are they? Radius and ulna, when we're in anatomical position, which is the more lateral of the two.
The
Radius.
is inside.
So when you see the brachial bifurcate, you've got this one which is lateral, A28 has to be the right radial, A27 has to be the right ulnar. Lateral medial, sides of the forearm. Are we okay with these, Gwyneth?
Did you say 23 the thoracoacromion?
A30 superficial palmar arch.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the whole palm.
It arches superficially in the palm.
Okay. Yeah.
Goes whoop. Okay? So when you have the aorta passing through the diaphragm, we'll now have the abdominal aorta. And how many branches do we have coming off of the abdominal aorta? We had inferior pharynx, celiac trunk, renal, suprarenal, superior mesenteric, and inferior mesenteric.
6, 7.
Not that many. So we just have to look. I lost count. 6, 7. I don't know how many more.
6 or 7.
Okay. I don't see pharynx in here. I do, however, see that little nub right there that's not labeled, but I love to point to it. That's going to be the celiac trunk. And we do see a vessel that then goes to the liver, common hepatic. We do see a vessel that comes over here to the spleen, splenic, which then means that leftover one is the left gastric. So if you follow it out, A33 has to be the left gastric. A35 has to be the splenic, and looks like 34, if I'm following the lines over, has to be the common hepatic. You then have two X's, so I can't actually, unless I cover up one and just point to one versus the other, A36 were the renals, but I could choose one or the other, the left or the right. Okay? Everybody good there? Okay. I don't see suprarenals anywhere. So then you have an A37, which has to be the superior mesenteric. A39 has to be, looks like it's going out to the outside of the body, had to be testicular. A40 has to be the inferior mesenteric. And then you start having commons. So A44 will be left and right common. A45, it doesn't look like it's labeled on the other side, so that's going to have to now be a left internal iliac. A46, oh, they do have it on both sides, but I could point to one versus the other. So A46 would be the external iliacs.
That one was internal though, right? Internal.
A45 is internal. That guy right there is internal. That guy and that guy would be external. Okay? Now, it's kind of ugly. I don't know why why they put it there. A48, to me it's too close to being on the inside of the girdle. It's hard to me it's hard to see. Now, A48 down here, femoral, not a problem with that at all. Okay, I wish they would have put A48 maybe down just a little bit further, but they didn't. So they still want the femoral over there. I don't see one on the left side. I lied. There is one on the left side. So I'd have to point to one versus the other. Okay? I'm guessing they want A54, the deep femoral. Okay, so branching off of that, going deep femoral. Okay, and I guess A61, then they probably want posterior tibial. Can't really see the other ones on that anterior tibial or peroneal. And it's external iliac, it's not. Because it's before the branch. So that would actually be the common iliac. That's the internal iliac. This out here would then be the external iliac. When that goes outside of the girdle, that becomes the femoral. So that red thing outside of the girdle is the femoral. Okay, you don't have deep femoral on this. When it's behind the knee, it's the popliteal. Now notice you have 1, 2, 3 red vessels. Okay, when I point to this right here, notice when you turn around, notice where my finger is here, that corresponds to this red vessel that's coming out to the front. So that makes this top one then, which comes out to the front, the anterior tibial. The one that you could still see back here has to be the posterior tibial. The only remaining one, this right here, goes to the lateral surface. That's going to be referred to as the fibular or the peroneal artery. And all of these, again, please keep in mind, these would all be the left common, internal, external, femoral, popliteal, anterior, posterior, peroneal. Radial ulnar.
And palmar.
Superficial palmar arch. Yep. Coming up, they're coming up, they're coming up, and then they come together. Where they come together, that forms the basilar. So you've got these guys right here. What are these guys right here? Vertebrals. They form the basilar. That then is going to circle around the pituitary as the circle of Willis. Okay, that circles around the pituitary as the circle of Willis. We know that these two are commons. Commons give rise to internal and external. These branch off to facial, maxillary, superficial, temporal. These guys are the internal that also give off a branch and form that circle of Willis. Okay, you may ask, either an ascending or arch aorta. 242 is the first branch. So what's our first branch? Breaks out trunk. Very good. Now you can't see it branching, but you can see the veins coalescing there. So we can assume that the arteries are going to branch about the same place. They actually want it after the branch, the breaks out trunk, going up to the head. So 238, they want the right common carotid. The next branch is coming up here. 214 is the second branch, which is the left common carotid. But they also labeled up here as 80. Left common carotid is before the branching. So both 214 and 80 are the left common carotid. This over here, 244, now is the third branch, which is the subclavian, left subclavian, exactly right. Now that's underneath the clavicle, but what are we going to call it out here in the armpit?
Axillary.
Axillary. So if you look at 609, that's the left axillary. That's all the farther out the arm would go. All right, so we then have 246 is thoracic aorta. When the thoracic aorta now passes through the diaphragm, we will have the abdominal aorta. We just can't really see much of the abdominal aorta. Again, it's 19 and 319 and 320 have to be the left and right inferior phrenics. Okay? We then see a 322 and a 323 going to these suprarenal glands, so they have to be the left and the right suprarenal. Or adrenal, suprarenal.
So it's just suprarenal.
Suprarenal.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. I don't know if I put the picture away. Remember all those suprarenal abdominal aorta, which is supposed to be this vertical vessel, not something that branches and comes out from it. So we have to understand that 318, they want the vertical vessel. 324, they want the thing that comes out. So 324 then is that branch inferior to the inferior phrenics, that big one that's short and branches right away, celiac trunk. It then branches into three things. What are the three things?
The splenic.
Splenic, colophatic,
Gastric.
left gastric, exactly right. So this 404, Okay, this over here, they might put right gastric for 404, but that's over here. Okay, the part of it that comes off the celiac trunk's over here, that's the left gastric. So that's what I really want for 404.
So it's gastric artery and its right branches.
Yeah, so cross out and its right branches. We just want the
The ones we just said.
yeah, what are the two?
The left gastric and splenic.
This is the left gastric.
Oh,
Splenic
splenic.
and common hepatic are the two we have to take care of because we just got the left gastric.
I was making sure you're asking me the same question.
Yep, 325, then is the splenic going to the spleen.
Okay.
And now what's the one that we haven't touched?
The left gastric.
We
Hepatic.
just have
Oh, the
this, the left
left
gastric.
hepatic.
Common
Common
hepatic. Okay. Okay. So 326, they want that last branch, the common hepatic. When, however, we put this in, we'll see that that's been cut right there is the same as that which is cut right there. So 326 and 425 are the same thing.
Common hepatic.
Common hepatic. That's the celiac trunk.
Yeah. Okay.
Celiac trunk branches into the splenic, left gastric, and 326 common hepatic, which is the same thing as 426. Sorry, 425. I don't know if you have a highlighter. You cannot see renals in here. You cannot see gonadal or testicular in here. So what remaining vessels do we have coming off the abdominal aorta? You can't see that, and you can't see the renals. So what else do we have? Just this and that.
The
Superior
phrenic and
mesenteric and
Inferior
inferior
mesenteric.
mesenteric. Those are the only last two we have. So that guy, 350, which is going to be 50, is the superior mesenteric. It's been cut with right here, 452. Those are the superior mesenteric. Okay? Now, what's the only remaining one that we should be able to see? Inferior mesenteric. What color should it be?
Red.
Red.
Red. Yeah, it's not. 458. Should be red. 458 is the inferior mesenteric.
Writing a letter.
You'd have to write it to every manufacturer.
Oh,
Because
I
so
don't have
far,
time for that.
that's been wrong, that's been wrong, this has been wrong, that's been wrong, they've been wrong. So far, everyone's been wrong.
Just picture you call them lot.
I got a red
Excuse
Sharpie.
me,
We can
I'll
just fix that.
color it.
Yeah, it wears off though. I mean, you've probably seen some of the models when I've tried to write on it, it gets all smeared and it just doesn't. That's why I use the stickers now.
Yeah.
To all you
Got these better model
all
paint.
over the lot bot.
The lot.
You know?
So
The lot bot.
458 should be red, inferior
So it's
mesenteric.
white.
Is it 4? Comes down. I hate where they put the labels because to me, 371 and 369 are right at the bifurcation. To me, why would you put it there? I would have rather they put the numbers up here because then it's obvious to see that we want the common iliacs. They then branch into an external and an internal. Okay, external, and internal. Okay?
External.
Yes, correct. Now, when the external goes outside of the girdle, what do we call it? Femoral. So this would be the right femoral.